Good evening to all. So we are in now third lecture session of the course, Computational Fluid Dynamics. In our previous lecture, we have seen the different forms of our governing equations. In terms of governing equations, we have talked about continuity equation, we have talked about momentum equation, and we have talked about energy equation. And in particular, I have explained you about both the integral and differential forms of continuity equation, and in each individual category I have dealt with the conservative and non-conservative form of the governing equations. Now let us try to have some relook on the governing equations, and let us make some comments on governing equations. Okay. So if you see what we are having actually, if we have to solve a fluid flow problem which is also involving the heat transfer, we require first equation which we have called as conservation of mass. Then we are having second equation as conservation of momentum, and for momentum we are having three separate equations for individual directions x, y, and z, and then we are having one equation for energy. Okay. Now, if you see the number of parameters involved, you have seen that in continuity equation as well as in momentum equation and in energy also. So one of the dominant parameter is density field rho. Okay. Along with the density, we are having velocity field also important. So if I talk about velocity field, I have taken u, v, and w as the components of velocity along x, y, and z direction. Apart from this velocity field, what I have one more important parameter which I have called as pressure. Okay, so pressure is also one more important parameter, and then we are having one additional parameter as E. So here E we have called as nothing but our energy. Okay, so now if you see how many number of parameters we are having, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it means we require to know 6 number of parameters. So 6 number of parameters we need to determine. And how many number of equations we are having? If you see the number of equations, we have one continuity, 3 momentum equations, and 1 energy equation. So it means we are having 5 equations. Okay. So our number of parameters are exceeding the number of equations available. Okay. So now here comes that how to solve, how to obtain 6 number of parameters by only having the 5 number of equations. Okay, so it means these equations are not sufficient to derive all the parameters, so we require some additional equations over here. Okay, so one of the additional equation which we can consider is our ideal gas equation. Okay, so if we consider that our fluids or our phenomenon we are studying in such a situation where ideal gas assumptions are valid, so what we can do, in addition to our existing governing equations, we can add one more equation which is particularly referred to as ideal gas equation, and we call as PV equal to MRT. Okay, and over here if I take this volume to the other side, I'll be finding finally P as equal to rho times RT. Okay, so now if you see what we have done, we have got one more additional equation. So we have now plus 1 equation. Okay, so we have got one more additional equation, but while we have taken the ideal gas equation, we have got one more new parameter also. Okay, so which one is that new parameter? So now if you see, I have written P equal to rho RT, and this T temperature I have got one more parameter. So you can see now we have how many equations? We have 6 equations now, including the ideal gas equation, and if you see in terms of parameters, now we have 7 parameters because temperature is also coming as an additional parameter. Now what to do? Okay, so now if we little bit go into the concepts of our basic thermodynamics, we know that thermodynamically I can express energy as nothing but our function of temperature and pressure. Okay, so other than the temperature and pressure, we can take any other property also. But if we follow the state postulates from our basic fundamental thermodynamics, it states that for defining any property, we require two number of independent parameters. Okay, so considering that, I can say that energy I can equate as nothing but my function of temperature and pressure. Okay, so now this will be only happening if I consider E as my specific internal energy. Okay, so if I consider E as only my specific internal energy, then I have to add two more terms in our governing equation of energy. We have to add kinetic energy and potential energy of the fluid parcels. Okay, however, if we consider E as sum of internal energy plus kinetic energy plus potential energy, then we need not to add the additional two terms. But in that case, what we have to do, we have to say that our internal energy is actually function of temperature and pressure. Okay, and this we know further. Say if we are having a situation of constant volume condition, then I can write internal energy as Cv times dt for an ideal gas. And if I have constant pressure condition, then I can write internal energy equal to Cp times T. Okay, so it means when we are including one more equation, ideal gas, which we are calling as our ideal gas equation, though that is assisting us in increasing one number of equations, but one more additional parameter we are getting over here as temperature. So what we require some more relationship into the parameters, our number of parameters. So that additional equation or additional relation which is required to solve our flow field to determine the number of unknown parameters based on the governing equations we are having, we have to also employ the knowledge from basic thermodynamics and the relationship in between the energy and other two parameters will be actually helping us in finding out the solution of all these equations. Okay, now so this is the first comment. Now let me make second comment about our governing equations. So if you see in our governing equations, density is a parameter which is appearing in continuity equation also. It is appearing in momentum equation. It is appearing in energy as well as in ideal gas equation also. Okay. Similarly, if you see velocity field u, v, w, that is also appearing in all these equations except for the ideal gas equation. Okay. Similarly, we are having temperature field, so that is only participating in ideal gas equation, energy equation, and the additional thermodynamic relation. Okay. So from here you can see that majority of the parameters which we are trying to calculate, these are not participating in a single equation. Okay, so majority of the parameters are involved in more than one equation. So that's why while we have to solve, it means we can say that our equations are nothing but coupled to each other. Okay, so whatever the equations we are having, these equations are coupled to each other. So if equations are coupled to each other, what we have to do, we have to determine simultaneous solution of these equations. So what we have to do, we have to do the simultaneous solution of equations what we are having, okay, in order to calculate our number of unknowns. Now if you see, let me write the generic scalar transport equation. So I have told you del rho phi by del t plus divergence of rho phi v vector will be equal to divergence of this one diffusion coefficient times gradient of phi plus source term. Okay, so if you see over here in this particular term, while we will be writing this equation for our momentum, we will be considering phi equal to u, v, and w. Okay, so phi we will be equating to 1 / 2 pi r square, 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 Let me check that we are connected or not. Okay, so what we have to do, as I have told you, that while we will be writing our momentum equation, phi we have to consider as u, v, and w. So when this additional u, v, w will be coming over here, if I write in vector notation in our momentum equation, I'll be having divergence of rho times v vector into v vectors. Okay, so here now you can see that this particular convective term over here is nothing but non-linear. Okay, so in our governing equations, our convective term is actually involving the multiplication of unknown variables. So that's why this convective term in our equations is nothing but a non-linear term. Okay, and now if you see this particular diffusion term, in the diffusion term, what we are having in the diffusion term, inside we are having gradient of phi, and outside we are taking one divergence. Okay, so this will make the order of this term as nothing but second order. Okay, so this is one important consideration mathematically. If we see from when we have to find out the solution of the equation, when we have to go for different numerical techniques to determine the solution, actually these parameters particularly will be very, very important. Okay, so in our governing equations, whatever we are having, the highest order involved is second order, and what we are having, our equation, in this particular equation, our this term, particularly our convective term, is actually a non-linear term. Okay, so these are some of the comments on our governing equations. Now,
Sir,
yes,
sir, in the last equation, when phi is equal to v,
yeah,
then we will like expand this term, uh,
yes, yes,
divergence of rho v dot v. Then
yes.
there will be a factor of 2 into rho into v into divergence of v. Then
Okay.
how can we equate this equation with the momentum equation?
Okay, so that is something which is in the vector notation. If you now substitute individual UVW, so we will be finding that this overall term will result in directional dependent unit vectors I cap, j cap, and k cap. Okay, so what we have to do while we are particularly expanding this entire equation, we have to segregate I cap, j cap, and k cap terms. So that will be making actually our individual three momentum equations. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now what I was telling, that majority of these equations, or almost all our governing equations, are taking the form of PDEs, partial differential equations. Okay. So that's why what we have to do, we have to over here classify, we have to, what we have to do, we have to do the classification of PDEs. Okay, we should know the concept of classification of PDEs, and we should also know the governing equation which we are considering, what kind of nature of that particular governing equation is there. Okay, why it is required? Because while we will be developing the schemes for numerical solution of these partial differential equations, the nature of this partial differential equation will help in determining the solution methodology. Okay, so for example, if the nature of the partial differential equation is different, then some of the equation, then what we have to do for these two different equations, we have to employ different numerical approaches in order to find out the solution. Okay, so that's why the classification of these governing equations is a very, very important parameter. Okay, so what I will do, let me explain you the concept of classification. So what I am considering, let me consider that we are having a two-dimensional flow field. So if we are having a two-dimensional flow field, we will be having x and y coordinate system, and we will be having some u and v as our velocity vectors. Okay, and obviously what will be happening, u will be our function of x comma y. Similarly, we will be also function of x comma y. Okay. Now, let us consider that to specify the behavior of this two-dimensional flow field, we are having some governing equations. Okay, so let me write down the governing equation as A1 into del u by del x plus B1 into del u by del y plus C1 into del v by del x plus D1 into del v by del y. Okay, and this say is equal to, so let me write over here, yeah, this is equal to F1. Okay. Similarly, let me write another equation, A2 times del u by del x plus B2 times del u by del y plus C2 times del v by del x plus D2 times del v by del y equal to F2. Say these are my two governing equations which are actually characterizing this flow field whatever we are considering. Okay, so there are few considerations over here. We are considering that u and v are functions of x and y. Okay, so let me consider, we are considering that u v are nothing but our continuous functions. So over our entire flow field in the xy plane, the functions u and v are continuous, and let us consider that at each and every point in our flow field, this del u by del x, del u by del y, del v by del x, and del v by del y, these are differentiable. Okay. So these are differentiable. Obviously, if our function u and v is continuous in our entire xy plane, then my functions will be always differential. Okay. And these are our governing equations. Now, if I say that my u is function of x comma y, I can write by using chain rule that du will be equal to del u by del x times dx plus del u by del y times dy. Similarly, I can write dv as equal to del v by del x times dx plus del v by del y times dy. Okay, so this I can write by using the chain rule. Okay. Now what I have done, I have considered, say I have some point P in my flow field. Okay, so I have some point P in flow field, and say I have some curve, I have some unique direction AB which is passing through this point P, and over this entire direction AV, our u variable is actually, u field is differentiable with x and y. Okay. Similarly, because similarly, if I say my function is continuous, I may have some another direction C to D which is passing through this point P, and over this direction also we will be having our differentials will be existing. Okay. Now what I am saying that say I have some direction which I am presenting with dashed lines. I have some direction, and let me say that over this direction, my differentiation of u and v field with x and y is indeterminate. Okay. So whatever I am saying, if you see, initially I have taken some assumptions. Initially I told that my u and v field is actually continuous over x and y, and at each and every point in this xy domain, my differentials of u and v are existing with reference to x and y. Okay. But what I am saying, I have told you some multiple directions over here, and in these multiple directions I have told you that two directions are, say these are arbitrarily taken. Okay, so there is no specific reason behind taking A and B along this particular direction. I can take A and B on any random direction. Okay, but what I am saying that at this particular moment I am representing two directions AB and CD over which I am saying that my functions are differential. Okay, and one direction I have plotted with dashed line, and I am saying that along this particular direction del u by del x, del u by del y, and del v by del x, del v by del y are actually indeterminate. Okay, So if these are indeterminate, it means I am actually contradicting to the assumption which I have initially taken. Okay. So how this thing is true, that we will try to see over here. Now if you see, I have 4 equations. This is my equation number 1. This is my equation number 2. This is equation number 3, and this is equation number 4. Okay. So if I write all these 4 equations in matrix form, what I can do, how I can write? I will be having some matrix over here. Then here I will be having a matrix of unknown parameters, and in the right hand side I will be having a matrix of known parameters. Okay. So if you see, in my first equation, parameters are del u by del x, del u by del y, del v by del x, and del v by del y. So I'll be writing these over here. Del u by del x, del u by del y, del v by del x, and del v by del y. Okay. And how my coefficients will be appearing? If you follow this equation, we'll be finding that someone is trying to join. Let me see. I think someone is trying to join. Okay, so what I am saying, now if you follow the coefficients A1, B1, C1, D1, what will be happening? I'll be getting my coefficients over here, A1, B1, C1, and D1, and in the right hand side I'll be getting F1. Okay. Similarly, for second equation, I'll be getting A2, B2, C2, D2, and I'll be getting F2 on the right hand side. Then if I see the third equation, in third equation, in the right hand side, I'll be having du, and over here with del u by del x, my coefficient is dx, and with del u by del y, my coefficient is dy, and other two are 0, 0. Over here, first two will be 0, 0, then I'll be having dx, dy over here, and here I'll be having dv. Okay. So now, first we have to see that what is the value of this dx, dy over here and du, dv. Okay. So what I am saying, say I have some fluid element initially at point number P, and that fluid element is actually moving along line AB. So while that fluid element is moving along line AB, say it has reached to some new position P1, and while it has moved from P to P1, it has covered some distance ds. Okay, and the distance covered in x direction we are calling as dx, and the distance covered in y direction, that we are calling as nothing but our dy. Similarly, this particular fluid element will be having some velocity at point P and some velocity at point P1. So what I velocity at point P, this is about the horizontal velocity. Similarly, for vertical velocity, I am saying velocity at point P1 minus velocity at point P. So this is how we can calculate the value of dx, dy, du, and dv. What we will be considering? We will be considering, say, along some particular direction, our fluid element has traveled through distance ds. And if our fluid element is, say, traveling on some another direction cd, then obviously the values of these dx, dy, du, and dv will be changing. Okay. Now if you see, now we will be going into mathematics. Okay. So if you see, this is nothing but a system of equations, and in this system of equations, if I have to calculate these parameters, say del u by del x, del v by del y, what I have to do? I have to solve these systems of equations. Okay. So now let me try to solve this system of equations using Cramer's rule. So if I have to apply over here Cramer's rule, I have to solve this value of, say, initially I have to solve value of del u by del x. So if I have to solve value of del u by del x, what I will be doing, in this first column, I will be replacing all these coefficients with the coefficients on right hand side, and I will be taking its determinant. Okay. So I will be writing over here, say f1, f2, du, dv, okay, then other coefficients b1, c1, d1, and b2, c2, d2, dy 0, 0, 0, dx, dy. So these will be there. So determinant of this particular matrix divided by, I have to take the determinant of this matrix over here. Okay, so this is say my a1, b1, c1, d1, a2, b2, c2, d2. So what I am doing, nothing but I am applying over here Cramer's rule, okay, for solving this system of equations. Here I will be having dx, dy 0, 0. Here I will be having 0, 0 dx, dy, and I have to take determinant of this also. Okay, so now you can see, let me call this first above matrix as say matrix B, and this bottom matrix say I am calling as matrix A. Okay, so I am calling this as matrix A, this I am calling as matrix B. So one important conclusion you can see from here, when the value of what I have told you earlier that I will be having some characteristic line over this xy coordinate system which will be passing through point P, and along this line we will not be able to determine the value of del u by del x, del u by del y, del v by del x, and del v by del y. Okay, so now mathematically if you see from the Cramer's rule, this is how we can calculate the value of del u by del x. And mathematically if you see, if in our denominator determinant of matrix A, that means determinant of matrix A, if it is becoming equal to 0, in that case what we will be finding? We will be finding that del u by del x is nothing but infinite. Okay, and similarly if we say that determinant of matrix B is equal to, say determinant of matrix B is also equal to 0, in that case what will be getting? We will be getting that del u by del x is equal to 0 by 0, and this is nothing but indeterminate. Okay, so mathematically if we see, we may have the arrangement of these coefficients in such a fashion so that we are getting value of del u by del x either infinite, or we may get even this value as nothing but my indeterminate value also, okay, which we are not able to determine. So a situation in which we are getting indeterminate value of this del u by del x, the direction along which we are getting the value as indeterminate, that particular direction is referred to as characteristic direction. Okay, so this is one very, very important point. So this dashed line, whatever I have drawn over here, this particular dashed line is actually called as characteristic line. Okay, so this is my characteristic line over here. So this basically represents a particular direction on our xy plane. On along this particular direction, we will not be able to differentiate our functions, or whatever the derivative terms we are having, these are nothing but either infinite or indeterminate. Okay, so when we are mathematically we are referring to the definition of characteristic line, we mainly say that value of highest order derivatives of that particular partial differential equations are indeterminate. Okay, and over here whatever the equations I have taken, in each and every equation we are having our highest order of the equation as only one, so that's why we are considering that del u by del x is equal to 0. Okay, so similarly while I will be determining the value of del v by del y, del v by del x, and this del u by del y, in that case also I will be getting I may get a situation of indeterminate. Okay, but what I want to say that if any of this our derivative is becoming infinite, then obviously all others will also become infinite. Why? Because while we will be calculating the value of del u by del y, del v by del x, and del v by del y, then also in the denominator always we will be having matrix A only. Okay, so if in the denominator we will be always having matrix A only, So it means that for each of these derivative term, we will be getting a unique characteristic direction, and that direction will be independent whether which of the variable we are actually estimating. Okay, so this is one very, very important point mathematically. Now, considering the number of characteristic directions that one partial differential equation shows, we classify that partial differential equation. And obviously, this number of characteristic directions also influences some physical behavior of the phenomenon, which is actually very, very useful while we are developing the schemes for developing the numerical schemes for solving these governing equations. Okay, so this is, I have shown you the fundamental concept by considering first order partial differential equation. Now let me explain this particular concept with reference to our actual equation which we will be getting. Okay, so just now only I explained, while I was commenting on our governing equations, I told you that highest order in our governing equations we will be getting nothing but 2. Okay, so it means this characteristic behavior, whatever I have considered, I have to explain it for a second order equation. Okay, so now let me consider a second order equation. I'll be now considering the second order partial differential equation. So let me consider I have one equation A times del square phi by del x square plus B times del square phi by del x del y plus C times del square phi by del y square plus D times del phi by del x plus E times del phi by del y plus say F times phi equal to say 0. Okay, and what I can do if I use that phi x is equal to del phi by del x and phi x is equal to del square phi by del x square. If I use similar notations, I can write this equation in a concise manner as A times phi xx plus B times phi xy plus C times phi yy plus D times of phi x plus E times of phi y plus F phi equal to 0. Okay. Now, let me consider that phi x, what I have considered over here. So, phi x is nothing but del phi by del x. Obviously, if I am considering this in an xy system, so phi x will be a function of x comma y. Similarly, we will be having phi y, which will be function of x comma y. So what I can do now, if I apply chain rule over here, so I can say that d phi x will be equal to del phi x by del x times dx plus del phi x by del y times dy. Okay, so this will be becoming del phi by del x of phi x, where phi x is already representing del phi by del x, so it will be becoming phi times xx times of dx plus here if I write del phi by del x and derivative with reference to del by del y, it will be becoming phi times xy of dy. Okay. Similarly, if I do on the right hand side, I'll be finding d phi of y will be equal to phi times xy into dx plus phi times yy into dy. Okay. So now one more thing I'll be doing, because I have told you that while we are estimating the characteristic direction, we have to consider the direction along which our highest order terms, highest order derivatives of the partial differential equation are indeterminate. Okay, so that's why what I will be doing, whatever the lowest order terms and coefficients we are having, this I will give some name as say some constant h. Okay, so this is say some function or some constant which is actually nothing but h of phi, because we are mainly interested in highest order terms of the partial differential equations while determining the while classifying our partial differential equation, and while determining the characteristic direction. Okay, so now what I'll be doing, this h of phi I'll be taking to the right hand side. So now this is my, say, equation number 1, this is, say, my equation number 2, and this is my equation number 3. So now what I'll be doing, this system of equations now I will be writing in the matrix form. Okay, so if I write this system of equations in matrix form, I'll be getting some 3 by 3 matrix over here, because this entire term I am taking to the right hand side, because I am mainly interested in the highest order terms. Okay, so in the first equation we are having coefficients a, b, and c. So I can write over here a, b, c times phi xx, phi xy, phi yy, and in the right hand side I'll be having, say, minus h of phi. So I'm not very much interested that whatever the value I'm having on the right hand side, because the left value itself will make our highest order term infinite. So based on that only we will be able to comment on the classification of the partial differential equations. Okay, then if you go to equation number 2, in the equation number 2 with phi xx we have constant dx, and with phi xy we have dy. Okay, so I'll be having over here dx dy 0, and this side we will be having d phi x. And here what we will be having, with first we will be having 0, then here we will be having dx dy, because if you see with d phi y I have dx with phi xy, and with phi yy I have dy coefficient. Okay, now here I'll be having d phi y. So now we already know, if I call this as my, say, I have to determine value of phi xx. So what I'll be doing, I'll be taking the determinant of, by replacing these right hand side coefficients in first column, divided by, I'll be taking, say, that I have called as determinant of matrix B, divided by, I'll be taking determinant of matrix A, if I call this as my matrix A. Okay, and already I have told you that when my determinant of matrix A is equal to 0, that will only make my this differential term phi xx as infinite. So that will be itself sufficient enough to make our derivative of the highest order term indeterminate. Okay, so that's why what I'll be doing, I'll be considering that my this determinant of, when determinant of A will be equal to 0, corresponding to that whatever the direction I am getting, that is nothing but my characteristic direction. Okay, so if I take determinant of A equal to 0, I have to consider ABC dx dy 0, 0 dx dy, and this I have to equate equal to 0. So now let us take determinant. So you all can take by your own and can drive to try to find out the equation, final equation what we are getting. Okay, so over here what I'll be doing, let me write down the determinant. So it will be A times dy square minus b times I'll be getting dx dy, then plus c times I'll be getting dx square. Okay, so this is my determinant. Now if I divide throughout by dx square, I'll be finding A times dy by dx whole square minus, so this is basically like this. This is entire square. Okay, so I'll be getting A times dy by dx whole square minus b times dy divided by dx plus c equal to 0. Okay, so here you can see, let me write this equation once again over here. A times dy by dx whole square minus b times dy by dx plus c equal to 0. So you can see over here, this is nothing but, while we are equating the determinant equal to 0, we are getting nothing but a quadratic equation, and this is quadratic function of dy by dx. Okay, so if I have to calculate this dy by dx now, so So if what I have to do, I have to nothing but I have to apply over here the method for finding the roots of this quadratic equation. Okay, so dy by dx will be becoming minus of v plus minus b square minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, so if I have to calculate, so what is this dy by dx? If you see my earlier slide, I have told you that we are having xy plane, and over this xy plane we are having some point P. Now we are having a number of directions over here, but we are having some unique direction, some specific direction about which our highest order derivative is becoming indeterminate. Okay, so now if you see over here, this dy by dx represents nothing but slope over the xy plane. So this represents slope over xy plane. So it means while we will be solving this quadratic equation, whatever the value of dy by dx we will be getting, that will be representing the slope of this particular curve over here. So this characteristic line, or I can call it as characteristic direction, whatever I am getting, the slope of this direction is actually we are calculating over here from the solution of this quadratic equation. Okay, so now the value of dy by dx is actually strongly depending upon this particular factor. So if this particular factor b square minus 4ac, if it is greater than 0, in that case what we will be having? We will be having two real roots. Okay, so if we are having two real roots, we will be having two different values of the slope. So if we are having two different values of the slope, it means we will be having two characteristic directions. Okay, so here we will be having two characteristic directions. Then if my value of b square minus 4ac is becoming equal to 0, in that case what I'll be getting? I'll be only having unique root. Okay, and that too it will be real. So we will be having unique real root, and this will represent some unique characteristic direction. Then if my b square minus 4ac is less than 0, then I'll be having imaginary roots, and if I have imaginary roots, obviously I will be getting some imaginary directions. Okay, so I'll be getting some imaginary directions over here. So now when we are having two real roots, value of b square minus 4ac is greater than 0, corresponding to that we call our, if we are having say some partial differential equation for which we are getting the roots as two real roots, that particular equation we call as our hyperbolic PDE. Okay, so this we call as hyperbolic partial differential equation. And if our roots are equal to 0, then we will be calling as parabolic PDE. Okay, so parabolic partial differential equation. And where we are having roots imaginary, that we call as nothing but our elliptic partial differential equation. Okay, so then we will be calling our PDE as nothing but elliptic partial differential equation. So now one more important thing I would like to highlight over here, from where this terminology hyperbolic, parabolic and elliptic comes. Okay, so if we write down the equation of generalized conic section, what we do, we write a times of x square plus b times of xy plus d times of plus c times of y square, then we write plus dx plus ey plus f equal to 0. So this is my generalized equation of the conic section. And now if we are having value of b square minus 4ac as greater than 0, then our conic section is nothing but hyperbola, so hyperbolic, and if it is equal to 0, then it's a parabolic, and if it is less than 0, then we call it as elliptic. Okay, So the generalized equation of conic section, whatever the values we are getting over here, that gives us some geometric form of the curve. So considering that geometric form, actually considering analogy with that, we are over here actually naming our partial differential equations as hyperbolic PDE, parabolic PDE, and elliptic PDE. Okay. Now, apart from finding these three values, roots of this particular equation, in order to determine the slope of the characteristic line, what we can do, we can also find out only the eigenvalues of the matrix. Okay, so we are having matrix A equal to A, B, C, then we have dx dy 0, then we have 0 dx dy. So if I calculate the eigenvalues of this matrix, based on the eigenvalues of this matrix also, I can say whether my equation is hyperbolic, parabolic, or elliptic. Okay, so how? Let me just explain. So if we are having all the eigenvalues are either positive or negative, it means all the eigenvalues have same sign. So if all the eigenvalues have same sign, then we call our equation as elliptic partial differential equation. And if all the eigenvalues, if any of the eigenvalue, if at least one eigenvalue is equal to 0, then we call our equation as parabolic PDE. Okay, and if we are having eigenvalues with different signs, okay, so if we have eigenvalues with different signs, then we call our equation as hyperbolic PDE. Okay, so one of the method is where we will be calculating the determinant. From there we will be finding some quadratic equation, and based on the roots of the quadratic equation we can categorize. Another direct approach is whatever the matrix we are having, in this matrix itself, if we calculate its eigenvalues, so if all the eigenvalues are having same sign, then we will be calling these as elliptic PDE. If one of the eigenvalue is equal to 0, then we will be calling parabolic PDE, and if eigenvalues are having different signs, then we will be calling our equation as hyperbolic PDE, and the matrix which we are considering over here, A matrix, that is called as characteristic matrix. Okay, so now what I will be doing, I will stop, and we will have further discussion in our next lecture.